Human nature will never be able to accept that immortality is impossible. Moreover, the immortality of the soul for many is an indisputable fact. And more recently, scientists have discovered evidence that physical death is not the absolute end of human existence and there is still something beyond the boundaries of life. One can imagine how such a discovery delighted people. After all, death, like birth, are the most mysterious and unexplored human states. There are a lot of questions connected with them. For example, why a person is born and starts life with a clean slate, why he dies, and so on. A person has been trying to cheat fate all his adult life in order to prolong his existence in this world. Humanity is trying to calculate the formula of immortality. However, recent research has brought science and religion into one. Death is not the end. After all, it is only beyond the boundaries of life that a person can discover a new form of being. Moreover, scientists are sure that everyone can remember their past life. And this means that death is not the end, and there is another life beyond the line, unknown to mankind, but life. But if there is a transmigration of souls, then a person must remember not only all his previous lives, but also deaths, whereas not everyone can experience this experience. The phenomenon of the transfer of consciousness from one physical shell to another has been exciting the minds of mankind for many centuries. The first mention of reincarnation is found in the oldest scriptures of Hinduism. According to them, any living being resides into material bodies, the gross and the subtle, and they function only because of the presence of the soul in them. When the gross body finally wears out and becomes unusable, the soul leaves it in another subtle body. This is death. And when the soul finds a new and suitable physical body for itself, the miracle of birth occurs. The transition from one body to another, moreover, the transfer of the same physical defects from one life to another was described in detail by the famous psychiatrist Jan Stevenson. He began to study the mysterious experience of reincarnation back in the 60s of the last century. Stevenson analyzed more than 2,000 cases of unique reincarnation in different parts of the world. While conducting research, the scientist came to a sensational conclusion. It turns out that those who have experienced reincarnation will have the same defects in their new incarnations as in their previous lives. These may be scars or moles, stuttering, or another defect. Incredibly, the scientist's conclusions can only mean one thing. After death, everyone is destined to be born again, but in a different time. Thanks to Professor Stevenson's research, proponents of the theory of transmigration of souls consider reincarnation to be a scientifically proven fact. Moreover, they claim that almost everyone is able to view their past lives even in a dream. The first scientific explanation that life does not end with the physical death of a person was given by Tsiolkovsky. He argued that absolute death is impossible because the universe is alive, and the souls that left the perishable bodies, Tsiolkovsky described as indivisible atoms wandering through the universe. This was the first scientific theory about the immortality of the soul, according to which the death of the physical body does not mean the complete disappearance of the consciousness of a deceased person. As reincarnation psychologists and therapists say, a person's life is connected with his death. For example, a person who does not believe in God and leads a completely earthly life, which means that he is afraid of death, for the most part does not realize that he is dying, and after death finds himself in a grey space. At the same time, the soul retains the memory of all its past incarnations, and this experience leaves its mark on a new life. And to deal with the causes of failures, problems and diseases that people often cannot cope with on their own, trainings on remembering from past lives help. Experts say that after seeing their mistakes in past lives, people in real life begin to be more aware of their decisions. Visions from a past life prove that there is a huge information field in the universe. After all, the law on the conservation of energy says that nothing in life disappears anywhere and does not appear from nothing, but only passes from one state to another. Our world is designed in such a way that there is nothing final and final in it. Day is followed by night, and then morning comes again. The seasons change each other, and the end of one story is just the beginning of the next. Death, which is perceived by many people as the final destination, is just another transfer on our endless journey. When you understand this, it becomes much easier to live. However, not everyone is sure of this in our society. Most feel fear at the thought of leaving. What a person feels at the very moment of death and shortly after it. What happens to a person at the moment of death? As is known from most religions and beliefs, at this moment the soul leaves the body. Their opinions differ about what happens to a person afterwards, but nevertheless the moment of separation or departure of the soul is definitely present. Many people who have experienced clinical death claimed that they began to see their body from the outside. At the moment of death, subtle bodies separate from the physical body. Man continues to exist in one of the lower subtle bodies, as an astral one. Of all the subtle bodies, it is the densest, not counting the etheric, but it is rather a double of the physical body that disintegrates almost immediately. Therefore, it is possible to stay in our physical world for a while in the astral body. The separation process is easy. Moreover, before death, a certain protective mechanism is activated that makes it absolutely painless. This confuses many people because they think that death is scary and painful, but in fact the opposite is true. Touch, sight, and even hearing are preserved in the astral body. You can feel the density of objects and at the same time pass through walls and hover under the ceiling. Probably, this body still has some very small physical density, but it is negligible and allows it to flow through the surrounding things. By the way, it is fair to clarify that the separation of the astral body from the main body does not always mean that a person has died. Some people can cause such a state at will. It was even called the fashionable term astral exit. A lot of books have been written about this, and someone even conducts trainings. If the conscious transition to the astral body is a rather difficult task, then unconsciously during life it happens to absolutely everyone. Each of us traveled in our astral body many times. It happened in a deep sleep. Hence, perhaps, the quite fair expression occurred that sleep is a small death. However, the difference between death and astral travel and sleep is that the connection between the physical and astral body is severed. During life, these two bodies are connected by an energy channel. After death it disappears. If we go back directly to the moment of death, then it has some features. When you read the memories of people who have experienced clinical death, you see a certain variation in their testimony. Someone hung from the ceiling and watched him being resuscitated, and someone, on the contrary, flew to the light through a tunnel or met with deceased relatives. Why did this happen? Because the astral body, unlike the first one, is not limited only to the physical world. That is, it can be present both in our world and move to more subtle worlds where the souls of deceased people are located. In general, our consciousness is much like a computer. For example, when you watch this video on the internet or read the text, it does not mean that the image is stored somewhere in the monitor. This means that the machine processed the received data and showed the result on the screen. The same thing happens with our consciousness. It receives a stream of data from the information field and converts it into pictures, sounds, and sensations. And after death, this mechanism continues to work, just the data source changes. As long as we live, we are tuned to one information flow. This is our world. After death, we catch his signals for some time while we are in the astral body, and then switch to another wave. This explains that at the moment of clinical death, people see different things. Part of them adjusts to more subtle vibrations, and the other part, most of these people, needs time and they are near their body. One of the main disadvantages of death, perhaps, is that being fully conscious and perfectly understanding everything and everyone, you become invisible to your loved ones. Most of the deceased see their grief, but they cannot help and declare themselves in any way. Many of them want to convey the message to their relatives with all their might. I have not gone anywhere and I have not disappeared. Everything is fine with me. Do not grieve. It is very contradictory, on the one hand, to be in a rather pleasant and light state. On the other hand, to realize that your loved ones do not hear you. Taking care of family and friends is usually the only thing that attracts after death into our world. There is usually no craving for the former body, especially if the person died at an age or from a serious illness. In a new state, you feel much more free and interested in everything. There are a lot of new sensations around. Nevertheless, there is no automatic enlightenment or character change. A person still remains himself, with the same inclinations, interests, and behavior. Any process has its own nuances, successful and unsuccessful circumstances. The same thing happens with death. When it occurs as a result of a very traumatic event, or some tasks remain in a person's mind that he must certainly complete, he can get stuck in the astral body for a long time, not wanting to part with it. This is how ghosts actually appear. These are people who, for various reasons, did not discard this body. These people unknowingly get stuck either in past situations, living them over and over again, or they are haunted by an obsession and they are close to the physical world trying to influence it somehow. Someone may try unsuccessfully to contact grieving relatives and calm them down. Someone simply cannot believe in their own death and is in a semi-delusional state. There are different cases. The astral body has a negligible density, but still. Therefore, in case of contact with the physical world, it can cause interference in electrical appliances or even a slight glow in the dark, which apparently served as the source of tales about ghosts in white sheets. This is exactly what a ghost should look like in the opinion of many directors. In fact, the astral body usually repeats the appearance of the physical, at least for the first time. However, In most cases, the process after death still takes place without such incidents. That is, a person is still present in the physical world for some time, often visits his own funeral, and then his astral body begins to slowly disintegrate, and he moves to other layers of reality, which are called that light.